All right, you're live.
Looking at the scene.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. There's Patrick. Okay, y'all continue on. I will get plugged in. And...
Okay.
What?
Oh, Ed's still not.
He's connected.
He's making gestures.
We hear you, Ted. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
Okay.
May
So
I
it's-
just point out my shirt?
Oh.
People, hello,
Love it.
see it?
Says
I'm with the band books.
In all the schools that we looked at for Margaret, she's not going to a different school this year, but most of the libraries had like the band book section, which
Yeah.
was that's great.
Yeah, I bought it especially
Yeah.
to wear it tonight,
I
and
love it.
so I should show it
That's
off.
good. Okay. We're called to order 3 minutes ago.
7:01.
7:01. We have we're gonna quickly hit all the things we gotta vote on. And then we might circle back to a couple of things or not. So we need to approve the last set of minutes. We've already had a correction, not Ann Malazzi, but Annie Malazzi.
Sorry, Ted. I know you named her Annie.
Angelina, actually.
Angelina, yeah, I said that. I'll fix it.
Great. Is there any other changes that we need to make? I didn't see anything.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second,
Here a second. Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we got the bills. I'm missing,
What's the expense to Beekman?
That's our EAP. You're gonna make me spell it out, aren't you? It's essentially mental health
the
support.
employee
Oh,
assistance
yeah.
program.
Thank you.
Thank
welcome.
you.
That we pay annually for all of the part-time employees to utilize.
I'm
Gotcha.
missing.
And it's hosted by Beekman.
Yeah, it's actually a group program that the Dutchess County Library Association group buys so that it's cheaper. Beekman pays the bill, we pay Beekman our portion.
Gotcha. That was my only question.
That was my only question.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
Just a note, the Arthur Freehill CPA
Uh-huh.
did the New York State AUD, and it is in the file. So if any of you want to look at it, feel free to go.
Okay,
I'm sorry, did we make a motion on the minute?
I did.
Okay, never mind.
Carrie seconded it.
and we voted.
I was just making sure, I didn't get a check mark.
I'm just gonna go.
So how do I have to say this in a particular way? Do we have to,
Well,
Just
moving on to reports, do
okay,
you have any updates?
do we have
No,
to
we're
vote
doing
on
the cap.
the cap?
Yeah, just make
Yeah.
a motion. You say the cap.
I'll make
and
a
the
motion.
amount.
So I'll make a motion to approve cap 230321F in the amount of $11,906.71.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Doing reports. As quickly as possible. I have nothing to say.
Bills.
No, we just did the votes.
We did the cap, then you have the,
When we
We
have
did
the
the
other,
cap, but the financial.
Oh, you did.
Financial
The
report,
president's
yeah.
report shows up first.
where have I been living? You're right.
It's okay.
Go.
Like I said, I have nothing. Ted, do you have anything else to say about the finances?
No, you've got everything that I have.
Okay,
That was
any
their
questions,
finances.
people?
Not a single one.
It all looks pretty straightforward to me. The beginning of the year is always so easy.
You might want to look at the fundraiser report that I included. For
I
the
didn't print it out, but I saw it.
I'm impressed by those numbers.
I am impressed by those numbers too.
Hold on.
Oh, I didn't include it. My bad, guys. I didn't
Thank you.
include it in the binder.
Scott, is this the document that you're talking about called BOT Postcard Fundraiser Revenue?
Yeah.
Expenditures?
Yes,
Yes,
29 responses? What does that mean? That's the, we got 29 donors
Yes.
from that campaign totaling $3,896.
We got, well, it was $4,941.36 total, but minus the expenses for the printing, it was $3,896.57 for,
On top.
yeah.
Got it.
That's gross.
I don't understand the numbers, JFLLEWEY.
the initials of the people who gave.
Ah,
Those are the individual donations.
got it.
You can see some are small, some are big. Or
I wish it was a little bit higher.
It was the first time we did it, so
Yeah.
I think, you know. Was that you knocking? on
I'm
the-
very happy with it.
no,
Hearing things.
Do we have to approve the financial?
no, I don't think we do. Okay, moving along.
My report.
Do you wanna,
Yeah, mine's
you wanna-
quick. I mean, everything's there for you guys. The only thing I want to note is that currently we're on track to exceed circulation by about 8% this year.
Great.
Programming's been great. You haven't seen it in this report, but we had a phenomenal turnout for the Rose Knox event. We had 52 people attend.
Wow.
that
Really?
event.
And
And
you
we
did it-
have,
You did
we
upstairs?
did it upstairs.
Amazing.
They were out in time, and we had a whole group that came all the way over from Johnstown to attend the event. So it was really phenomenal.
Huh.
The only other thing that did not meet this report, because I just had these updates today, first of all, Annie is looking into getting a notary certification. The library, I did tell her that I would, when I get the estimate for that cost, I would submit it to the board to cover the cost for the course. And for her to get that certification so that we can provide a notary. The cleaning situation, Bob is no longer doing the cleaning for the library. I don't know why.
I
But
don't
they
think
have,
he's doing it for town hall either.
I don't think he's in. I'm not sure what the
Can-
situation is.
It's a switch in his responsibilities.
Oh, okay. And neither,
And the cleaning is being done, right?
well, we haven't had anybody the last few weeks. The library staff has been doing it, but.
We just authorized to have it taken care of.
Yeah, so Amanda came by this morning and let me know that they did hire somebody and she will be doing the cleaning for the library. If we want to consider looking into somebody to come in an extra time a week, we can still pursue that. I was in contact with somebody.
Mhm.
So, but she hasn't come by yet. And I haven't got an estimate as to how much that would cost. She is local though, if we want to pursue that.
you know, we do have to approve, we're supposed to vote on the finances, the monthly reports. We didn't do it. We
Oh.
only did the cap.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve monthly financial reports.
I'm going back to do it. I'm gonna put it and make like we did it. I'll second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thought I had missed, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm sure we
Um,
did
there's-
these things. I'm sorry to interrupt. but-
I did, we did receive a grant from, again, I'm gonna be super quick with this. We did receive a grant from Stewart's. It wasn't the full amount that I asked for, but it was $750 towards summer reading. I think I asked for 1,500. I have to go back and look at the application. I did get 2 responses back on the other grants that I applied for, and unfortunately, they were for operation support and they were a no. So that was about 10 grand there that we did not receive this year. However, there is a new youth development program fund. This will be for October of this year through summer of next year is when this funds can be utilized. The applications due March 31st. I'll be pursuing that, or March 30th. And then there's another fund, the Northeast Dutchess County Fund that just opened up with Berkshire Taconic.
Okay.
And it's for $2,500 to $10,000. You can use it for operation support, but I'll tell you, if you put operation support,
gonna-
they're not
Right.
gonna do it. We have to find a specific program, so that's due it at the end of April, and I'm looking at options as to what specific program or thing that we could use to apply that for, so that we can get it. But I've just learned at this point that applying for general operation support just doesn't do you any good. Unfortunately, that means we won't meet the $29,000 gap for this year in our operation expenses. But that's it for me. So we don't have to vote on
Okay,
it. He's not here.
I'm not here, so we're moving along. I don't think there's anything on the committees that really need reporting at this moment in time. We have a meeting coming up with for the logo.
Yeah, so financial planning is gonna be in new business.
Yep,
The signage and logo, we have a meeting on Friday, if anybody wants to attend. I haven't confirmed the time with him yet. He's out of town until tomorrow, so
Okay.
I'm assuming that's why I haven't heard back yet, right?
I got a design for the sign.
oh,
So we need to have the new logo and
Okay,
everything, but
yeah.
I think we're getting there.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then what I want them to do is add
the hanging.
had the piece, well, will be the community center thing, and then also another thing here where you have the letters that you can put your
I
events
love
on.
this one.
Yeah,
Do you want to show it to the?
I like the green. Stands out.
yeah,
These are the sign options.
Sign options.
The sign did blow down 2 times last week with the winds.
You see it kind of.
Yeah, I did.
We had Michael
Beautiful.
Manning, a volunteer, go out and fix the sign. Well, he offered to do it. Frankly, during that one day, I was like, just leave it, but he went out and fixed it. Yeah, so that sign desperately
Yeah.
needs to be replaced.
So I think we're slowly getting there, but
but I
Um,
do think if we're gonna relogo
Yeah.
things, we should
Yeah.
relogo the sign.
yeah,
agree.
100%. So I think we're just sort of
Yeah.
getting sort of a base, and then
Yep.
once we do that, we can shift
Perfect.
things over into this.
Do we need to talk to the town board about that?
I think so, because we're hoping that they're gonna pay for it.
Well, originally they were. I don't know where we're at.
Okay, so let's see.
Okay.
Let's see where we are. This sign is about half the price of the original sign that we had
Oh,
got
great.
so when, we can figure out how we're gonna pay for it if they're
Okay.
not.
For facilities and capital investments, I actually talked to Paul Mays last week. He was just checking in to make sure we don't have any updates. I told him that what we've talked about previously, that until we understand what our operation funding looks like beyond this year, that we can't commit to making any plans for facility improvements, in the case that we have to use our reserve funds for
Hmm.
operation expenses. So that's the only update I have on that.
And the policy review, we will jump right into as new business or the old business. We have a couple of policies that we've been bouncing back and forth that we need to have on our website. The first one is the very well revised by Darren public comment policy for the Board of Trustee meeting, which I actually think he tightened everything up really nicely. But it's pithy,
Pithy.
yes.
It is.
My only question in regards to this policy is it says opening the meeting to public comment will be a regular agenda item. Do we want to have the public comment period immediately after the call to order? Just so I know where to position it on the agenda.
Yeah, that makes sense to me to have it as the first thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so if we have no further comments on the contents of it, I think we could take it to a vote. So,
I vote to accept the public comment policy for Board of Trustees meeting as is.
I can second it.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey. Okay, moving right along with all the voting. So the second one was the policy for video conferencing for the Pine Plains Free Library Board of Trustees. There were a couple of. But I forgot what I was, so we want to just, open the conversation to make sure this is something we can live with. I feel like, we need to. The extraordinary circumstances should be, maybe a little, less specific, or give it a little wider reach of, or like something like on the case by case basis of the president or something.
Language
to
like
just-
left to the discretion of the president.
President, yes.
Just leave what's there and
You say
add
unexpected factor or event which you say
precludes the
any
members.
other significant or unexpected factor.
To be approved, and then just add at the end of, at such meeting to be approved by board chairperson.
Okay. Yeah, so just add a little,
Yeah, to be approved.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
that takes some of the little sting out of it.
Cause I think that like Darren's reason for not being here makes sense.
Right.
Well, and.
Well, he's not
that would-
voting, but he's
right,
not, he's,
yeah. Well, or Patrick's reason for not being here is considered, I think Claire would consider that reasonable cause.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm
And then-
here, but normally I'm not. Is that
Yeah.
extraordinary?
yeah,
Childcare.
childcare.
Childcare is, yeah.
so I had an issue with the 24 hours. Because,
Oh, yeah.
so I plan on being here on Tuesday nights, but there may be a meeting that I don't know about that may pop up at 5 o'clock in my office and I
Mhm.
have to be in New York. Right, so I could still attend remotely, but I might not know
Mhm.
about that meeting, which is out of my control. Right, so I think saying that you have to tell them 24 hours in advance. I mean, if Darren were doing the video meeting from the hospital,
Right.
he didn't give you 24 hours,
Right.
right? So I think that's restrictive.
Right, and then that goes against the extraordinary and.
Right.
I agree with that.
Do we
So-
want to just say must notify the board president and take out
As
no later
soon
than 20,
as soon as
And
possible.
Reasonably possible, right?
as soon as reasonably possible?
I'm questioning the. Members may not utilize video conference participation. If we're saying that it's extraordinary circumstances. Why should we really be capping it, or is that required by law?
I asked for that language when I saw the original draft, because the spirit of the law, and this was confirmed in the seminar
Mhm.
that
Right,
we took, is they want people in person. That's the spirit.
right,
It is meant to be able to cover extraordinary circumstances for an illness, for you blowing your tire, coming back up the sprain from New York City, or something like that. That's the spirit of the law. Obviously, each board can take it into its own discretion. It certainly would affect us specifically.
mhm. So
We can always take it out for now and decide to add it in later.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is a new law from the state, so you never know, they might actually include it in the language later. But as of right now, they don't have any specific language in the law that says that
It has to.
you have to be physically present at X and X meetings.
Right.
They leave it up to the board's bylaws to dictate what is considered appropriate participation.
And it's
And
the
policies.
8th time they've changed this law in
Yeah.
3 years.
True.
Okay.
Literally the 8th time in 3 years.
So I'm gonna say that perhaps we remove that sentence
Yeah.
for the time being.
Correct.
And there will continue to be more guidance as to how we're supposed to be following
Yeah.
this ever-changing law. Throwing mud pies at it seems appropriate.
So I have 3 total amendments. One is to add at the end of, I guess, point 2. Physical attendance at such meeting to be approved by board chairperson. The second amendment is on point 3. The member must notify the board president as soon as reasonably possible. And the third amendment is on point 3, the last sentence to be striked.
Right.
Are there any additional changes? And if not, can I get this thing off my desk?
Yes. Let's vote. I put forward this policy as amended. The policy on video conferencing. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Patrick, are you good with it? I think you're muted. Oh, no.
Yes, I thought I raised my hand.
Okay,
Oh.
sorry.
All right.
See you. All
Okay.
right.
So we've got some new business. Can we reshuffle the order or do you want to go through it?
Well, the first 2 should be quick.
Okay, if we're gonna be quick,
There's-
let's do it.
We're 25 minutes into the meeting. We're doing
Very well.
fantastic. This is great.
Annual director's
This is
report.
Claire.
It's the new agenda. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Annual director's report fiscal year 2022. You guys see this every year. It's the same spiel. You got it you got it a week ago. Oh, well, I guess a little under a week ago. The only thing on here is the square footage thing. They are requiring the floor plans be sent to the state. I don't know why, because it was changed the year that we were moved into the building, and then it got changed back when we had to move back into the other building, and it never got changed again. So I'm like, you already have the floor plans, but in either case, they're just being difficult. Once that gets approved by the state to be changed, I can't change that number.
Right.
They have to approve to change that number. They'll have to go back for the last 10 years and change it.
Do they only need the square footage? Because there's a square footage.
They need the square footage of what they would consider the library floor. So the problem is that vestibule out there is not considered
Library.
our floor. So they need the full blueprint of the floor to calculate what's actually
Wow.
library space.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have them? To send them or
I
do you-
don't have them. I have to go to town hall to
Okay.
find them.
Okay,
And I was in process to get that, but we got stalemated and trying to figure it out and how to send it over correctly. So the recommendation from Mid Hudson was just leave it for this year because they're gonna have to go back and change it for 10 years anyway.
okay.
So.
Right.
But other than that, that's the report for the year.
Okay.
It's
And then
ridiculously long.
the-
And we do have to vote to approve it.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Sorry. So we have to vote to approve the annual director's report for fiscal year 2022.
Do I make a motion to approve that report?
Sec.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, second report is the annual report to the community. I sent you guys an updated one. Jean just wanted some clarification on I did not print out that darn report.
Oh, you have to, there's one thing you do have to change on this report. It's
Okay.
Aaron's address. We do not have a Fairview Avenue in the town of Pine Plains. It's
Oh,
Farview Avenue.
Farview.
Farview, okay.
It is a common
She spends
mistake.
a lot of time up in Hudson.
It's, listen, yeah, I mean,
You lived in Fairview, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I lived off Fairview, but yeah. Farview for Darren.
everyone has a Fairview, no one has a Farview.
Do we need to approve the
Well,
document that we're talking about today?
What? Start over?
Do we need to approve the report to the community at this meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
do you not like it?
I have some comments.
Okay,
Now you're causing me to wonder how material they are. Mm, mm.
Well, let's.
I mean, I guess in theory, I don't have to approve it.
Does it get printed and then it's a trifold that's up at the front?
Yeah.
Then I think we should approve it.
What's your?
Let's start with your, Patrick, your concerns.
Well, some of them are just wordsmithing. Well, the first one that's not wordsmithing is in the first sentence, the word closures. I think you want closures, CLOSURES.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then I just have some other wordsmithing. I'm trying to decide.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
I'm on page 2 now. I can live with my word, ignoring my words. Well, if you're going to change it,
If we have to change one thing, we could change 3 things.
right. So actually, let me go through these because they're so small, no one's going to care. But if you're changing that one, I would change the second sentence. It doesn't work grammatically. It should read, "Our circulation is back to pre-pandemic levels, and our programs are ever-increasing in quantity, quality, and attendance." Do I need to do that again? So you're crossing out levels, comma, our programs, and you're replacing it with levels and our programs are. And then you're adding a hyphen after the word ever. And then I think in the 4 bullet points, if in the first one, you're going to say from 2021, you're going to want to add that at the second and third bullets.
And why do you have semicolons after those bullets?
Ask my editor.
I would take the semicolons out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, if you were gonna chain them together in a sentence, you would need the semicolons, but
Also, I don't think you're supposed to start a sentence with a numerical figure. So instead of the first paragraph, I would say calendar year 2022 was a huge bounce back. No one's going to jail for these, but
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Close.
looking at it, so.
So can you, okay, so I have calendar year, the fix for closures. I just didn't look at that too closely.
All right,
And then our circulation is back to pre-pandemic levels
and our programs are
and our
ever-increasing.
increasing. Okay, so I have 4 modifications. First modification is at the beginning of the sentence, calendar year 2022. Second modification is correct the spelling of closures in the first paragraph. Third modification is the second sentence, our circulation is back to pre-pandemic levels and our programs are ever increasing. Take the semicolons out. Is the 4th modification. Do I have any other modifications?
Yes, the 5th modification is in the same way that in the first bullet point, you have the words from 2021.
Okay,
You're going to add those same 2 words after the 13.5% and after the 24%.
okay. Okay, that shouldn't be a problem. 2 other bullets. All right, what about on the rest of the report? Such as,
I think it's good. Give me a second.
Very much in my team. Acting has always been a joy.
Yeah, I don't have anything as long as we're comfortable that the numbers have been double checked.
quadruple check.
Great. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I do have one more. The first paragraph of the second page, where you say this year the Friends gifted, it's actually in 2022.
Yes,
The Friends gifted.
2022, the Friends gifted. Got it. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 modifications. First 4 already went over. 5th modification, add from 2021 to the other bullet points on the first page in the paragraphs. And 6th modification is in 2022, the Friends gifted, specifying the year.
Mhm.
Any other recommendations or modifications? I'm glad that they're all grammatical and not contextual.
Mhm.
To me.
Yeah, no, it was-
There's no charts.
Oh, the old,
Where could I fit them?
I have a question. Why do you, why aren't you, right, justifying all the numbers? Why do you have it like,
It's the way that the publisher I'm using is
okay,
formatted.
all right, that's fine.
Hold on, can I see it?
Yes.
it's just kind of,
Oh, I just need to fix that.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually did. It's gonna line up the way that the funding line is.
So
I
it will right
realized-
justify. it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I fixed it, but I
Okay.
didn't save it and send it. So
Okay.
it's already fixed.
Okay, all right.
okay,
Okay, outside of that, do we approve the content of the?
Sorry, I have one more question.
Yes,
Under 2022 by the numbers, certain of those items are estimated. And you say estimated amounts based on a typical week.
yes.
I don't know the typical week has meaning to me. Is that
Oh.
an estimated amount based upon like an average?
Yeah, like a typical, so I don't include. So wireless usage, we don't keep track of on a regular basis. Well, and we didn't last year because of the way that the system we have is, and computer usage, we don't click. So it's just based off of, for the state report. So all of these numbers are in the state report. They do essentially the same thing where you pick a week during the year that's like a typical week that you don't have
holidays.
the summer
extracurricular
camp
days,
coming
yeah.
in. Yeah, and you add up during that week the amount of computer usage, reference transactions, and a few other things, and then you multiply whatever you got in that week times 52.
So when you pick when you have to report that to the state, do they also use the word typical to just?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept this?
I would make a motion to accept the report to the community calendar year 2022 with the modifications that Alexis just went through.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have an hour for the big part of a
Exactly.
little bit under.
This is
an hour.
great.
This is great.
Okay, so I am going to pull up my presentation that I shared with you all, and I will go through it. It goes pretty quickly, but bear with me. And the reason I picked a presentation is because I feel like there's a lot of data in this, and if I just read it all off, it would be a lot of numbers that you're trying to verbally absorb. So I figured some graphs and data would help conceptualize it. If I can get this, where is the slideshow? There it is. Oh, hold on a second. So, oh, I did that, but I want to share screen. What's the problem here? Hold on 1 second. This might be more complicated
Here,
than I
right
guess.
there. Did you do that?
Share screen. Share. Okay. Which one is it? And then play games. Got it. Okay. So. Here we
Can
go.
you just minimize the windows? Sorry, okay.
You know what? No, because this is going to get in the way already. We'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so. Let me make sure.
Really?
Is it really? Okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna try to make it go backwards. So with the completion of the 2022 fiscal year last year, the Pine Plains Library Board of Trustees expressed concern, all of you expressed concern on continuing current library operations with the ever increasing costs associated with keeping up with the usage and demands. For 2023, the library board voted to continue current operation levels despite the lack of increase in funds to meet these levels. Well, by utilizing 29,000 of reserve funds for capital investments to cover the increased operation expenditures for this year. The board, knowing that these reserves will only support library operations beyond 2023, started to plan future sustainable funding for the Pine Plains Free Library. Beginning in Q4 of 2023, specifically in September and October of last year, we discussed the potential for the Pine Plains Library to pursue its first Chapter 414 vote in the library's 225-year history. The library board asked me to look into this process and weigh on this issue to ensure this measure would be a worthy pursuit. Since our meeting in November, when this issue was last raised, I've met with several consultants from other libraries and within our library system, including Rebecca Smith Aldrich, Executive Director of the Mid-Hudson Library System. I have reviewed and studied over 10 years of library data, funding, usage, and circulation in order to prepare a comprehensive report of not just library funding, but library demand so that I can better answer your questions that were raised during last year. Oh. Oh, see, Beth just entered.
Oh,
I'll accept her in. Hold on, sorry. Okay. So this graph that I have here looks at library usage for the last 10 years. 10-year view of library usage shows a dramatic increase in the utilization of library services over the last 10 years. Using the annual director's report from the state to compile this data, the Pine Plains Library has seen a big increase across circulation, program offerings, and program attendance, which was only interrupted due to COVID-19 closures. The library has seen a 148% increase in circulation from 2013 to 2022, with an average increase of 12.6 yearly, which was actually 20.6% yearly, exempting 2020 COVID-19 closures. Even with this drop, we've also seen even with COVID-19 closures, we saw a 98.9% increase.
Johnson's there, no,
What's that?
I have an appointment tomorrow morning at 11:50.
Okay,
I don't think you need to come.
Sarah, you're not on mute.
sit with Schaefer,
Hi, Stan.
right. If you want me to drive you, I will. I don't think I have anything on in the morning.
Hey, Sarah, you're not on mute.
Oh, this is your library thing.
Got it.
okay.
Okay. Sorry, resuming. So we've also seen since 2013 a 98.9% increase in program offerings with a 126% increase in programming attendance, which did not let up really at all during COVID-19. You can see that in the graph here. We dropped a little bit, but we went right back up. So feel free to review those numbers as you see fit. Move, thank you. Okay.
This is why charts are good. It shows the trend.
Yes.
Continue to go.
That's why I did this, because I figured if I just verbally vomited all this data, you
No,
would be
this
able
is
to
great.
conceptualize it. So this graph looks at public funding for the last 10 years, what we've received specifically from public funds, which comes from the town of Pine Plains. That's our main source of funding. We're a public library, we're publicly funded. So despite the 140 or average 137% increase in usage in the last 10 years, as you can see from this graph, library funding has stayed relatively stagnant once you adjust for inflation. So in 2013, the library received $77,500 of public funding from the town of Pine Plains, but adjusted for inflation to that amount today, that is equivalent to $100,000.83. Obviously, for this year, we received $99,500. So that's a 0.6% decrease after adjusting for inflation, while also trying to meet the 137% increase in usage. As you can see previously, starting in about 2018, the library attempted to financially catch up with this demand. However, without those consistent increases in the years following, the library is back to operating on inflation equivalent lower funding sources than we were in 2013. I think that the big part of this graph shows the importance of staying on top of inflation on a consistent basis and how quickly it catches up with us. In 2020, we received, well, obviously 2020 was COVID year, but we got approved in 2019 for 2020 to be funded for $96,500. That's the equivalent of $112,228, which is obviously quite a bit less than what we have right now with the growing demand. If anybody has questions throughout this, please go ahead and ask.
I have a quick question, although I usually try to keep them until the end. When you say adjusted for inflation,
Yes.
how, I guess I have to ask it this way, how confident are you that you've calculated that correctly? And I ask that only because in my job, I get to look at this kind of stuff all the time, and it comes from the accountants. And when they say this is the number adjusted for inflation, I never double check it because they're accountants and I'm a lawyer. So I just, so I'll repeat the question. How confident are you that you've calculated that correctly?
So at the bottom of the graph, I included the hyperlink for the website that I use to calculate this specific set of numbers. I used about 4 different sets, which were off by like plus or minus $1,000 on each of those numbers. This one I picked to include in this report because it's from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So it comes from the government. So to me, it's a little bit more reliable. As to how confident I am, I will, like I said, it's of the 4 calculators I use. It was.
No, that's great. That answers it.
Okay, great.
You didn't do this yourself. You pulled it from the Bureau. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No, I didn't calculate.
It wasn't Alexis's inflation calculator.
No.
I don't know how to do it.
And if you're curious, you can click that link and type it in yourself. Actually, when I did it this morning, the numbers were a little bit higher because they were adjusting for what last month's inflation cost was, which is now at like 6%. Whereas when I first did this calculation, I think it was at like 5.6%. So
Is there a way to set the date that?
I just
On the
put till
calculator?
2023. So
Okay.
January of 2023
Okay.
is when I did it.
Okay, perfect.
At the beginning of the year. So when our fiscal year would have started, essentially, is what I did.
Okay.
The only thing I wanted to add is we're not even really keeping up with inflation. So I think that one of the board members, I believe it was Darren, who's not here tonight, asked me, we have increased funding for over the last few years, specifically between 2018 and 2020.
Mhm.
And why does it feel like that money's not going as far? And this is why.
Yeah.
Because it's not going as far.
Case in point, if the inflationary rate went up 0.4% in only 30 days.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, this year's inflation rate.
Well, and then the cost of things. So it's not only real dollars, but also the cost of everything is more.
That's a great
So-
point. I was going to bring it up later, but that's just adjusting for standard inflation costs. That's not adjusting for the fact that in 2020 we shifted to a very digital landscape.
Mhm.
So the library is now paying a lot more money because that digital landscape is frankly a lot more expensive than the physical landscape. And during 2020, we were able to do it because we didn't have the physical circulation because nobody was in the library as much. So we were able to take those materials for the physical materials funding and move it over to digital. But now we still have the same digital demand while also trying to get back in the increased physical demand. So that money is just not working anymore. And especially when the cost of an ebook is, $60 for a New York Times bestseller, and the cost for the physical item is $20.
Yes.
It's a big difference.
Yeah. And then wages.
Well, yeah,
Being
wages
mandated
have
or-
increased beyond
Yeah.
the inflation rate. You have to keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
So most of you know this information already, but I just want to reiterate it. The chapter 414 changes the way the library requests funding from the town of Pine Plains by putting the library budget on the election ballot in November. The New York State Education Law 259 in 1995 was modified to allow libraries of all types to put their budget on the ballot so that citizens may allocate funding to their library. The primary intention of this vote was to give voters and taxpayers a definitive voice in how their tax dollars are allocated to their library. Although this vote isn't mandated by the state, the board ultimately decides, you guys, the board, ultimately you decide how we achieve public funding and how we request public funding. It does give libraries another option if they are struggling financially to keep their libraries operational. This vote, here, let me actually change one more. These were some of the questions that you guys posed to me back last year. I'm answering them in a quick rundown here. This vote does not change the library's charter or status. It does not create a new tax district or increase taxes directly. This vote only appropriates funds from existing taxes collected by the town to the library via a voter, via the voters. The library board does not need the town board's approval for this vote, but it does have to work closely with the municipal clerk during the petition process. I'll explain that later on. Of the 66 libraries in the Mid-Hudson library system, over 50 libraries utilize budget votes, whether it's a chapter 14, the education vote, 259, or a special district library vote. All of our surrounding neighborhood libraries in Northeast Dutchess, including Northeast Millerton, Stanfordville, Amenia, Red Hook, Tivoli, and Clinton, utilize chapter 414 votes. Once a vote is approved, the amount cannot be modified unless the library board decided to pursue another chapter 414 to modify the amount, and it must be approved by the voters. It's not a yearly vote. Typically, most libraries pursue a vote to increase their funds every 2 to 3 years, but some have been able to utilize their votes for longer than 3 years. Are there any other additional questions before I move on?
I thought it was interesting that it can show up on the tax rolls
Yes.
as a line item.
Yeah, so if you're interested, you can go pull up the tax rolls for Clinton and Stanfordville and Red Hook and Amenia and Tivoli. They all have a line item for the library. It's actually recommended that we recommend to the municipality to
So
do
you see
that.
where your money's going.
Yeah, so they
Yeah,
can
makes sense.
see how much is being allocated of their taxes to the library because it's based off of a percentage. But it's really up to the municipality if they want to do that or not.
Okay.
The primary advantage of a chapter 414 vote is to put the question of the library budget and operation in the hands of the voters of Pine Plains by allowing the public to decide how much of their existing property tax dollars paid to the town are allocated to the Pine Plains Library. This takes the responsibility off of the elected town board members and puts it into the hands of the voters. Sustainable, predictable funding is also a large advantage. Currently, the board goes to the town board annually with the library budget. Regardless of what the library's recommendation is, the elected town board can decide to increase, decrease, or leave the budget as is. As the gap to being financially stable keeps growing each year, this process has become a challenge to advocate for significant jumps in library funding, while the town board is also tackling many town projects that need funding as well. The disadvantage to this, of course, is the work involved. To get the library budget on the ballot is a multi-step process with a lot of community engagement involved. The board should be prepared and expect many questions about the library's budget, usage, and utilization of funds. Also, if this establishment vote fails, the repercussions on the library budget process might be an area for concern. So if this vote fails, we'd have to go back to the town board and continue negotiating that way. Okay, at this point, my notes ran out because I ran out of time, so I'm just gonna go off the cuff here. So the process begins with a petition drive. We'd have to gather a minimum of 10% of signatures of registered voters that voted in the last gubernatorial election. I was able to pull the voter rolls in anticipation for tonight. And we had 1,708 voters in Pine Plains in the last election. So we would need 171 signatures as a minimum. I'd recommend, of course, if we pursue this, to get at least 200 so that you have some buffer in case the clerk has a problem with
Mhm.
some of the signatures. Petitions must be submitted no later than August 7th. I'd recommend doing that in July. To be put on the general election ballot, it has to be submitted to the Board of Elections. Once approved for the ballot, the campaign process of educating the public on the vote begins, and then voters will vote on the budget during general election, which can happen during early voting between October 28th and November 5th, or on general election day on November 7th. This is the timeline. I think we've all at this point seen the timeline. When Rebecca came and joined us last year, she went over this timeline. But this is the last month to vote to pursue whether or not we're going to pursue the chapter 414 vote, and for what amount that we want to pursue it for. If we vote to pursue it, we will need to sit down and speak with the town board and tell them what we're going to do and why, and just have a conversation with them. Obviously, we've never done a chapter 414 vote, so I'm sure that they would need to be educated on this process and how the law works on it as well. And then we would need to start developing our petition drive strategy so that come next month and in May, we are able to do our petition drive to collect 200 signatures. We have to approve those signatures by June. And then in July, we would submit it to the municipal clerk. Well, she will go over each of them and decide which signatures can be approved, or she'll double check all of them and make sure they're actually Pine Plains voters, that the address is correct, etc. And if there's any issues, we'll have a chance to modify them. Once she approves them, we bring it back to the board meeting in July. We'll go forward with approving a board resolution, and then we'll send it off to the Board of Elections. And then from September to October is campaign time. Just like if we were somebody who wanted to be on the town board or the town supervisor, we have to campaign for people to vote for the budget. It's kind of similar to a like a bond, but it doesn't affect taxes in the same way as a bond does. And then in November, the public votes and we wait for the results. That's kind of the general timeline. If it's successful, the amount approved by the voters must be collected and given to the library through the municipality. The amount that is approved would remain unchanged until another petition process is enacted to go through the ballot at another general election, which the board would have to approve to go for, the library board. The municipality cannot cut funding once a 414 vote is established, nor can they modify it in any way. This is why it's considered sustainable, is because it can't be modified unless the library board decides to modify it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have to submit our yearly budget to the town if we have 414?
No.
Okay,
No, the only reason we
see
do
that.
that now is to recommend
to get
what
the
we
money,
need.
right,
Yeah, so that we can show them what we need.
justify,
Right.
okay,
I mean, it has to be publicly posted anyway. So,
right, but it's not like
Yeah.
we have to justify to them why we are getting
We're in control of our own
300,000
destiny.
when the budget is 280 or whatever,
Right.
okay.
If it's not successful, so obviously I put an asterisk next to without an establishment vote because we've never pursued this, so we don't have an establishment vote. So without an establishment vote, the library board would have to continue negotiations, sorry, with the municipality and hope that they will help start increasing our budget to bridge the gaps that we have. Again, we're currently operating at a $29,000 deficit, so that gap is by next year going to be probably somewhere between 35 and 40,000, adjusting for inflation alone, much less minimum wage. Once we do have an establishment vote, if we decide to pursue it, it gets a little bit less scary in that sense, because if, let's say 3 years from now, we pass a vote this year, they want to pursue an increase, it doesn't go away. If it fails, it would just default to what the last previous vote was. So if we pursue a vote for $160,000 and in 3 years it needs to increase to $165,000 and it fails, we'd still get the 160 that was passed previously. Why should we pursue a chapter 414 vote? If an increase in public funding does not occur, the library cannot afford to provide its current level of services. With $29,000 currently coming out of our capital reserve to cover operational expenses for this year, those reserves are estimated to be used up by fiscal year 2026, and that would eliminate any ability for us to invest in the building and continue doing modifications that we've started trying to plan with Butler, Roland Mays, and fix things that we've been trying to fix for a while. And also that gap is increasing every year in terms of financial sustainability. We would need, like I said, about a $40,000 to $45,000 increase just to cover existing services for this year. And that's not including meeting the gap in demand, which we're not currently providing. And like I said, we're not able to keep up with demand. So the problem is that holds for both digital and physical items, I'm having to pick and choose which ones to do, which is actually in violation of resource sharing standards with Mid-Hudson Library System. If we have 4 holds on an item, I'm supposed to buy that item. I can't keep on top of that. It's not financially, I'm not financially able to keep on top of that. It would blow our materials budget out of the water. As well as last year, we did the strategic plan for our new 5-year strategic plan. We did our community survey. The results are posted online, but as you guys might remember, we had a lot of demand for increased hours of operation, specifically in the mornings, as well as increased programming. Programmers and costs are going up. Even just to book for the summer camp this year, the performers that we've done, almost all of them have increased their costs by 5 to 10%. So I'm really struggling to stay on budget already for programming expenses for the summer this year. So if we don't increase it, we're gonna have to cut somewhere.
So you're saying it costs money to run the library
It costs money to run the
Scary.
library.
and it's going up every day.
Correct.
The
Along with everything
demand
else.
and the money.
Yeah.
That is required to run the library.
Yes. And also the big thing here is that we would have, right now we have kind of a mishmash of sources of funding. So last year we had a really great grant year. Granted, it was for a special project, but we were able to get a lot of grants. This year, I've applied for 6 grants for this fiscal year and I've received 1 so far. And the other ones have been denied. So if we're able to pursue a vote to at least cover operational expenses, we're guaranteed to operate without having to worry about
Right.
the fact that 4 grants didn't come through for operation expenditures, which frankly, grants don't want to support operation funds. They want to support special projects. They want to support capital investment. They want to support improvements in your building and for your patrons. They
Right.
don't really want to spend money for payroll and
Right.
for standard programs. They want.
No, because
special
they
projects.
assume those things are being paid
Covered.
for by the town.
Correct. All right. The question of how much was the big question last year. So with the help of Ted Malazzi, thank you, Ted. We created a projection sheet for fiscal year 2026. We picked fiscal year 2026 because that would be the year that we would run out of reserve funding. If we decide not to pursue this. So as you can see from the line by line item, we utilized what the estimated inflation rate, which I actually used the average inflation rate for the last 20 years, which is significantly lower than what the estimated inflation rate for the next 3 years is going to be, just to throw that in there. Our estimated inflation rate is about 5 to 6% for the next 3 years. I use 3.8%. So that's increasing, general equipment costs, education, travel, building expenses, our insurance, and general library programs. We also went line by line for wages because minimum wage is set to rise at a higher rate. So we projected that. We did also try to bridge some of the gap between program expenses and material expenses, but to be honest with you, it might not be enough, but it's at least a start to start bridging that gap, but it would take a lot to fully bridge that gap, but it's a beginning. And for the sticker shock value, the total expenses projected for 2026 came out to $197,900. we would need an estimated $166,900 from public funds in 2026 to be able to cover that budget. And I do want to add that that's with 4 staff members that we currently have, a library operation that does increase hours a little bit, but by only, I think it was 6 hours a week, just to meet the demand that users have been asking for. But it's not increasing staff hours much outside of just covering the additional 6 hours that the library would be open.
And the $30,000 gap would be made up.
So we increase library fundraising from $11,000 to $25,000 as well. Thank you.
Welcome.
When we did that workshop. So we are trying to help bridge the gap by increasing our fundraising efforts. As you can see that, doing a standard fundraiser might raise between $4,000 to $8,000 typically. I think Beth is on. Beth, are you there? I thought I saw her on.
I'm here.
Do you recall how much the auction typically would bring in? That was our most successful fundraiser.
Yeah, I think it was in the neighborhood of like 5,000-6,000.
Yeah. So a $25,000 fundraiser is pretty ambitious. We've never raised, I think, that much in fundraising over the history that I looked at this, but we would push to do that.
So I've never experienced the auction. Can someone just give me the brief description of the event?
That'd be Beth. That either. None of us have been here that long.
So we basically went around to local businesses and got donations, artists, services, experiences. We tried for everything that we could get. And we did a silent auction. We were able to, Michelle and Patricia let us use the upstairs of the Stissing House. And so we had a really nice event that, we had the bar open, we had wine donated. Chase Holm gave us cheese and, charcuterie. So it was a really, really nice mingle of people. You didn't have to buy anything to get in. It was free. People could just come and enjoy the event. And then, lots of people bid. So Sarah had a hook rug that was a bidding war one year. So yeah, we had all kinds of different things. So, and now we have more businesses in town. We could probably do even better with that, and lots of creative minds beyond my own and the volunteers that helped me. Yeah, it could probably be a pretty cool thing.
Okay, thanks.
So there's this is my last slide outside of opening it up for discussion. There's 2 kind of options in terms of reaching this estimated amount by 2026. The first is just to go for the full amount. Of course, that's a little bit of a sticker shock for some people when you go from $99,500 of public funds to $166,900. But the good part about that is that it would meet the increase in user demand pretty much immediately. And we could start finally bridging the gap in the demands and services for materials, hours, and everything that they've been requesting for 2 years now. And the other benefit is that projection would last us for at least 3 years, barring any extenuating circumstances like another pandemic. So we wouldn't have to go for another Chapter 414 vote for at least 3 years, or until we feel that that those funds can't stretch any longer. The other option is that you go for a smaller amount, and with the expectation that you'd have to go for a Chapter 414 every year. I only know of one other library that does this, and it's just because the gap in their services every year is they have a very large budget. I'm talking like $600,000 a year, so they have to go for an increase for pretty much every year just because their operation is already that high. And I don't think that they're an accurate comparison to us because of how big their population and service area is.
What library?
Beekman. I think it's Beekman. Don't quote me on that. I have to go back and look.
It makes sense with the amount of houses that are
Yeah.
going up down there. The population's jumped
Yeah, so I know-
20% in a few
I'm
years.
I'm pretty sure it's hers. She has to go every year. She's
Mhm.
gone every year for the last 5 years.
Mm.
For us, we wouldn't have to
Mm.
do that. I don't see, I don't project, my professional opinion, I don't project that we would have to do that if we went for the initial amount. But if we want to increase it incrementally, the only downside to that is that we're already working in a $30,000 deficit. I know I've said that 20 times.
Mhm.
So the minimum that we'd have to go for is at least 145,000, and that's not increasing any additional to meet the current demand that's already there. That's just making us not have to dip into our reserve funds for next year. So you're looking at the difference between 100.
Again,
Correct. So
because
you're
we've already done it.
right.
Mm.
So you're looking at the difference of 145,000 to just not have to dip into our reserve funds again. And $166,900 to actually start meeting the demand of our users. And with that, I open it up to 4 primary questions of the board. What are the long-term questions or long-term goals for the Pine Plains Library? Are there any areas of the financial report that I just showed everybody from the workshop that you feel could be cut to conserve costs, or any that are in the existing budget that we could cut to conserve costs so we don't have to pursue a chapter 414 vote? Does the library want to spend its capital reserve money on operation expenses and use it up, or do we want to continue our plans with Butler Rolamain's architect to improve space utilization in the building? And if the board does want to pursue a chapter 414 vote, how much does the board want to pursue for next year? And what is the strategy for the years to come afterwards? And we have 20 minutes to discuss before Ethan has to go.
Very well presented, Director Tackett.
Thank you.
Well, I have another question, which is, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, but, what about the status of the building?
I think the status of the building, for the sake of this conversation, is not necessarily. Our lease is up, and I think we re-entered negotiations in 2025. I think it's up in 2027. Beth, do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think it's up. I think it's up in 26. I might be wrong, but
Yeah, so the status of the building is, I understand where that question's coming from, but the flip side to that is, regardless of whether it's in this building or if for some reason the lease negotiations turn sideways, do we want to use up all of our capital reserve funds and not have it to fall back on if something were to happen with the building? The other part of the capital reserve fund is to have there in case the building burns up overnight. It's emergency funds that are there for
Mhm.
us to utilize, both for improvements and repairs, and also for, in the case a Pleasant Valley happens. So you have to keep that in mind. I know that the conversation we had with the town board last December was promising, in the sense that none of the town board members have a problem or have any desire to move the library out of this building. But I think the real question is do we want to use up our funds for operation expenses, or do we want to keep those funds for capital expenditures regardless of what happens with this building or not? Anybody else have input?
It's a lot to nibble on.
Mhm.
I know we've all been thinking about it for a long time.
I have a question. I mean, I guess we're looking at this 414 vote, and I think if I'm understanding it correctly, we're looking at it and we're hoping that if it's right for the library to pursue a 414 vote, because we have a fiduciary duty to the library. And if we as a board determine it's in our best interests, the library's best interest, I would imagine we want to ask the town board to partner with us in this endeavor. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, I mean, we want the town board to be supportive of the library getting the funding it needs to operate. I mean, I think it's important to note that this doesn't help any of us individually. This helps library users. This helps the people of Pine Plains.
Taxpayers.
And I think that the town, I like to hope that the general town board would support that. And I mean, the biggest benefit about this vote is it takes the question of the library budget off the back of the town elected town board members and puts it right into the voters' hands. So if the voters for some reason decide that they don't want to support library funding, then the town board doesn't have to worry about lashback coming back on them.
Is there a downside to the, I'm thinking out loud, asking out loud questions in my head, which is where I keep questions. Is there, I'm trying to think if there's a downside to the town board to removing this, or to asking the voters to approve a 414, and thereby taking the, if I'm understanding it correctly, the obligation of determining the annual budget for the library away from the several town board members and directly into the hands of the voters. Is there a downside to the, I mean, I know we have a town board member participating right now, and I'm thrilled to have her there. And I'm not asking you, Sarah, I'm asking my colleagues. I don't know. And if I were a town board member,
I'm happy to weigh in.
please do.
Yeah, we would love to hear your opinion.
Okay, I just don't see the downside
Yeah.
to trying it. And I'm not all that optimistic that the town is going to adequately fund the library. I'm not really that optimistic about that. And I think that the population is entitled. I like the idea of the population having a say. And if you think you have the support in the population to get this thing, passed on the ballot, I think it's, that way you can ask the community to adequately fund you. I see it as a plus.
Do you think, in your personal opinion, I know you're just one, but do you think any other board members would have an issue with this?
I don't know. I think they need to be educated about it. I don't know that they even know about the option. I know about the option because I had a daughter that worked in a library for a period of time, and they definitely had the votes to get their budgets passed, and an awful lot of libraries too. So you have a major educational job ahead of you to get the public to understand what it is. But the library, I think, is very popular in the town, and you have increased the use of the library, increased the programming, and people want more library hours. So this is a way of getting that.
Right.
I don't know. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, Sarah.
Are we ready to move towards a vote? Or do we have more questions? Have more thoughts?
And what would the vote be? And I know you're not making a proposal right now, but would we be voting to pursue this? Would we be voting to, I'm just trying to understand what the vote would be today.
Yeah, so the vote today, as described to us by Rebecca, it would just be for the vote for the board to say that they are going to pursue a chapter 414 vote, and for what amount that is. You don't pass a formal resolution until after the petition signatures have been acquired. So today would just be a vote to say that we, as the board, Pine Plains Free Library Board, are going to pursue a chapter 414 vote for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of and, take it to a vote. And if it gets approved, then we move on to the petition drive. And then if the petition drive is successful and we acquire the minimum, what was it, 171 signatures, then we pass a formal board resolution in July. Does that
So-
answer the question?
It does, yes.
So I guess that's the other question. Do people want to discuss the two options? The two options, which is to go for the 166.9, which would give us a couple of years at a higher amount, but not have to pursue the vote, the subsequent vote. Immediately. Or should we just go with a kind of more moderate number, and then have to redo it next year?
I think we should go for the 166.9. I think making ourselves vulnerable in a year is not a good idea. It's my opinion. And I think if there's a recession, that might be the thing that people decide that they don't want to increase. So I'd rather go for that. It's not that much, and it's really not that much more money. So I would rather be covered for 3 years and see how that works.
And as you said, Alexis, if we get the higher number, people are gonna see results right away. They're gonna
Correct.
see
Yeah.
libraries open
Yeah.
and be happy that this all happened
In
and.
my professional
Hopefully.
opinion, that's my concern if we went for a lower number, is that
can't
they'd be
show
like, oh,
change.
you went for this big vote, but nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I paid how
And-
much for nothing?
Yes, so, and because I don't think people are necessarily gonna conceptualize that we are in a deficit right now. They're just not going to, they want it to approve this vote and see the difference. That's just my opinion though, and I'm not a voting member.
I think it's accurate.
Mhm.
I don't have any more questions and I'm prepared to vote on this.
For the full 166.9.
Yes, I'm prepared. I mean, so can I make a motion that the board resolve to pursue a chapter 414?
Do you two agree? You agree? You
I
agree.
am,
Only one person.
yeah, we get.
No,
to-
I agree.
Yes,
Right,
you're
it
a
was-
person, but if you nay,
Right.
Very well
Well,
put
let's-
by
yeah.
Alexis.
Yeah,
It's very
let's-
thorough.
So we're
Yes.
making the motion.
I was making a motion to
go ahead.
that the board resolve to pursue a chapter 414 vote at the amount 166.9 as Alexis laid out.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
right, so you made you resolved that the board should pursue this chapter 414 vote for 166.9. Who said
Yes.
first? Patrick, and then Kiri?
No, Ethan second.
Ethan
seconded,
second. Okay, I can't write and listen.
And then
Sorry,
it was
and think
unanimous,
unanimous.
And we have
Okay.
9 minutes.
barring our absence, but
Well, guess what? That's it.
and we can adjourn. Sarah.
Yes, hi.
What's the best way for us to try to find some time to talk to the board? Do we have to get put on the agenda? Do we just show up and trip Brian on his way out the door?
Well,
or-
no, I think it's a good idea that he gets a notice ahead of time.
I'm teasing. I
and
was
then
teasing about that.
The issue is whether he's going to want to do a workshop meeting to deal with it or not.
Okay,
So I would give him a call and let him know that this is going forward and that you would like to present to the board and would they like to do a workshop? Otherwise, just hopefully he would hear about the issue at the next board meeting, full
okay.
board meeting.
I'm gonna go.
But
on
the
record
other thing I
and
want to
say I'm
mention
not
is-
in favor of a workshop meeting because they have not been recorded. recently. So I would prefer a public meeting.
Okay, whatever. Ask for whatever you want. I wanted to mention that the person that we've hired is Brenda Jackson to do the cleaning of the library and some other stuff.
Thank
So
you,
I
yeah.
think that will be very nice.
That's phenomenal. Okay.
Okay, so we will work on that in the near future.
I do want to emphasize that it's even more important to sit down with
Madeline.
Madeline.
Okay.
She's gonna be the key stakeholder in this. Educating the town board's very important. I'm not gonna say that it's not. But she's explaining the petition process to her and getting started on that is going to be, she has to sign off on the petitions. So, you know, yes, we want to educate the town board, but we need to prioritize meeting with Madeline
Do we want to
quickly.
just kind of stop by or set up an appointment?
I would just set up an appointment. She's pretty responsive and she's pretty great. So
I'm happy to give her a call tomorrow and give her a heads up about it.
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
And then you guys can contact her and she'll know it's coming.
okay.
And then she won't have to freak out and call me.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Can I interject?
Yes.
Yes, Ted.
If in the time that you're waiting for this thing to happen, are you going to prepare a budget for next year based not on what you think will happen if this 414 passes, but what might happen if it does not pass?
Yes, so Rebecca suggested that we continue our standard July financial workshop. And we would create essentially two budgets. One based off of if the chapter 414 is successful, one based off of a reasonable accommodation if it doesn't pass for next year. And still try to advocate between July and November for the town board to increase library funding for next year in case it does not pass, so that we're not doing $40,000 in a deficit next year. So we'll just create two budgets in unless we decide that the budget that we create is the budget. I don't know, but she recommends that we create two budgets, that one is just like essential operation as is and take that to the town board to negotiate, and the other one would be the operation based on the chapter 414 vote passing.
The
Good idea.
term for the library ends December 31st, 2028.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then
so-
my last question, you have made $3,896 on the postcard deal. What do you want me to do with the money? Do you want me to transfer it to account 58? You want me to keep it in 19 for the operating budget? What's your pleasure?
I would put it, the money market account, I mean, this is again, not a board member, but I figured that would count towards our operation budget for this year.
Then it stays in 19.
Yeah, yes. Or can we move it to,
But
Could
you're
we
gonna
move
be
it to May?
getting money from the town next month.
yeah, but we budgeted in a donations, or I guess you could say fundraising budget for income, so this contributes to the operation expenses for the year.
But you can also transfer it out with approval of the board. It's up to you.
I'll defer to the board on
I'm
this.
okay with keeping it as operational expenses.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
right now that's okay. If we were start seeing that number exponentially growing as gifts, wandering in the door, we might want to think about that. But I think right now it was kind of unexpected increase.
Okay.
Okey dokey.
And then be sure and when you get this thing rolling, be sure to have an interview with the paper so that they can write about it
Hmm.
and explain it to the community.
Very
That's a good
idea.
idea, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
T-minus 3 minutes.
Motion to adjourn.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for enduring my spiel.
It was very good. Thank you.
No, you did a
Very
great job.
effective, well-prepared meeting.
Thank
You
you.
did a great job, Alexis.
Thank you, Beth.
And good luck to this project. I think it's very interesting.
Thanks
you,
so
Sarah.
much.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.